A very good morning to all of you. I'm Harish from the SBF team. Welcome to Web 3.0 NFTs and the Metaverse webinar, jointly organized by SBF and TechJDI in partnership with Temasek Polytechnic, True Global Ventures, and VIZZIO. Before we begin with the program, we'd like to share some house rules. No recording and sharing of the content outside of this webinar is allowed unless the information is available publicly. Also, the chat function has been disabled. If you encounter audio-visual issues, please check your connection. If necessary, you may leave and re-enter the webinar. If you have any questions, please submit them via the Q&A panel function on Zoom. This morning, we are joined by our esteemed speakers from TechJDI, Temasek Polytechnic, True Global Ventures, and VIZZIO. For greater engagement during the webinar, we have poll questions lined up for you. Do participate in them actively, which would also enable the speakers to address on key areas which you would like to hear. At this juncture, we would like to remind that all content covered in this webinar is educational and informational in nature, and any opinions expressed by the speakers should not be taken as professional financial advice. Without further ado, let me now hand over the time to Jason from TechJDI. Good morning, Jason. How are you doing?
All right. Good morning, Harish. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Awesome. Thank you, Harish, and great morning to everyone. My name is Jason, and I'm the Head of Sales and Marketing at TechJDI, and I will be your MC for today. Over the weekend, I did a poll on my own social media, and there was a lot of engagement and a lot of questions asked about today's topic. Likewise, we will be having different questions as mentioned by Harish, right, where you can answer and based on the polls that we have for you today. So if you haven't done the poll yet, please do so. Another question that I'd like to ask the members of the audience is, have you heard of some of these statements before? Like, we need you to increase sales by 3 times this year, or we want you to open up 5 new markets next quarter, or come up with 7 new products for the sales team to sell. Sounds familiar? You and I know that growth does not come easy in an organization. It requires everyone to be aligned and intentional. An organization's ability is closely linked, right, to innovation, and as leaders, our ability to innovate and grow is like the lead that determines the growth we have in the company. Today, our speakers will be sharing with everyone how innovation in the areas of Web 3.0, NFTs, and the Metaverse could jumpstart your organization's growth. On behalf of TechJDI, I would like to thank SBF, True Global Ventures, Temasek Polytechnic, and VIZZIO for making today's event possible. At this point, please allow me to introduce Mr. Thomas Seet, Managing Partner of TechJDI's Venture Studio. Thomas is an innovator and venture builder in the digital technology sector for the last 2 decades. Some of his previous roles include being a senior business leader at Konica Minolta's Business Innovation Center, Regional Director of Retail, Digital Marketing, and Product Management at Expedia. Thomas is a certified design thinking professional and holds a Bachelor of Engineering from NTU and an MBA from INSEAD. Thomas, over to you.
Good morning. Isn't it amazing how quickly some ideas can take root and grow from obscurity to the mainstream consciousness in a short span of time? What a difference a year makes. It was in March this time last year, about 12 months ago, that NFT really came into the mainstream. And it was sparked off with the sale of Beeper's Everyday's first 5,000 days, which sold for a record-breaking $69 million. The rest is history. In October last year, Facebook changed its name to Meta, signaling their hard pivot into the Metaverse. Other big tech companies quickly followed suit with their plans for the Metaverse. And today, the Metaverse, from being an obscure word used by only geeks and techies, it has come into the mainstream as well. And just about 2 months back, Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, started a big tweet storm around Web3, what it is, what it's not, what it could, and what it should be. And today, Web3 has come into the consciousness of the mainstream media as well. So what are Web3 NFTs and the Metaverse? And why should you care? So to begin, let's start with NFTs because that's where it started. If you are new to NFTs, what exactly is it? Well, it's basically made up of two things, two terms. It's non-fungible and it's a token, simply put. What do we mean by fungibility? Basically, something that is non-fungible is not mutually exchangeable or interchangeable with another item. So if an item is fungible, looking at the figure on the right, you can easily exchange it for something else of equal value and utility. So examples are things like Bitcoin and Ethereum cryptocurrencies, as well as the more traditional, familiar fiat currencies that we currently hold, like the US dollar or even the Singapore dollar. On the non-fungible end, examples would be things like they are totally unique, things created by creators, by artists. And this could be digital in nature and intangible, or it can be tangible in nature. So examples of intangible, non-fungible tokens represent a lot of times in today's context, digital artworks, digital music files, and such. In short, digital ownership certificates are what NFTs are. They're registered on the blockchain and cannot be tampered with. What's more important is that this enables new ownership and monetization models, including the ability for creators to collect royalties from secondary sales, thereby creating new markets for this class of assets. Some other examples of intangible NFTs besides digital artwork include entertainment. In NBA, Top Shots, NBA highlights are being sold as NFTs, short video clips of moments. Digital music is being sold as NFTs today. Even designs of in-game racetracks, the Monaco racetrack was sold, and in-game real estate, as in the case of the Sandbox. In fact, the NFT market is pretty much very, very volatile today. And at the end of last year, beginning of this year, many people thought that the bubble would burst. However, looking at the trends at the beginning of this year, it continues to grow and trend at a very comfortable volume, going at about 250 million per week. And average transaction values holding up at about $2,000 per transaction. Of course, most tokens are not sold at that average. There is a long tail of about most of the tokens being sold today are sold at about a price of $500. And there is obviously the headline sales of millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars out there. So let's move on to the Metaverse. What is the Metaverse? This obscure term was really first coined in a book by Neil Stephenson in 1992, a novel called Snow Crash. Today, in the context of what we're talking about, the Metaverse is more like a network of virtual 3D worlds that are going to be interactive, immersive, and collaborative. Metaverse could become the new operating system for the new iteration of the internet. If you think about it, when the internet was young, we accessed it using our desktops, using terminals and browsers. Today, we are in the age of the mobile, and the mobile is the new OS for us. In the future, the next generation could be accessing the internet to 3D immersive experiences instead. So some people might ask, isn't 3D virtual games and platforms already out there? Platforms like Second Life, Fortnite, and Roblox. are in fact early glimpse of what the metaverse might look like in the future. And Hollywood's representation of the metaverse in Ready Player One offers a very popular alternative view. But yet there are still some key areas that are critical for the metaverse to become the new OS that are not yet realizable. Things like the ability for interoperability between platforms, synchronous and massively scalable platforms that can support not just thousands, but even hundreds of thousands of participants simultaneously, and the ability to offer persistent 3D worlds. They are able to have its own virtual economy. So we are not yet there, but things are evolving rapidly, driven by improvements in the underlying infrastructure. With improved bandwidths and better latency, better computing power, and standards for interoperability. There's also this movement towards digital payments, and that's enabling virtual economies within 3D environments as well. And if indeed the metaverse is going to be the next OS of the internet, it's not surprising that billions have been invested by big tech companies, as well as many unicorns and startups looking at this space. Besides Facebook, Microsoft, Google, and the other big tech companies are actively investing in this space. And we can discuss more about this during our panel. And lastly, but not least, Web3. Web3 can be thought of as the next era of the internet. As briefly mentioned, Web 1 was really about accessing the internet through the browser. It was really a read-only web. Web 2 is more driven by social networks, about user-generated content. It's cloud-driven and mobile first. Web 3, on the other hand, will be driven by AI services, decentralized data architectures, and edge computing, allowing real-world data to be captured in real time and digitized. An alternative view of Web 3 looks at Web 3 building upon Web 1 and Web 2 technologies rather than displacing it. There are many opinions out there about what Web 3 can or should be. However, there's one major theme throughout almost all definitions, is that decentralization will be important. In fact, if you're a blockchain maximalist today, you might even say that decentralized apps is Web 3. Web 3 will run on the back of blockchain. And in fact, distributed decentralized apps have seen a lot of activity since 2015, ever since Ethereum was founded. And you can see there's an active and vibrant community innovating in this space. And although distributed apps, decentralized apps are still in a nascent form, the main technology layers have begun to form. That means the basic infrastructure for developers to start spinning out new applications around new use cases is becoming increasingly easier and easier for them to start and deploy apps in the production environment. And so, in a nutshell, Web3, NFTs, and Metaverse are more than just buzzwords. It's a great time to be an innovator or creator in this arena. We know that Web3 and the Metaverse is transformative and will likely create new trillion-dollar opportunities. But the definitions are still currently hazy. And it might take yet another 5, 10, maybe even 2 decades to fully realize the value. However, although it's nascent, the current use cases are already creating new value and new industries and disrupting large ones. In the creator economy, that's already been mentioned. In Gamefight, our second speaker, Mr. Kelly Choo will elaborate more on that. In DeFi, applications that are disrupting the banking industry today. In VR and digital twinning, it's creating new opportunities within the industrial engineering, facilities management sectors, as well as the entertainment sectors. And also in many other sectors like retail, education, and professional service, all ripe for innovation. Thank you for your kind attention. And I look forward to seeing you again later during our panel discussion, when we will dive more deeply into some of these topics and also try to answer some of your questions. Over to you, Jason.
Thank you, Thomas, for helping us jumpstart today's session. Based on the polls that has been answered by more than half of you, we can see that the intent for those of you who signed up for today's session is to increase your knowledge of the future economy. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to reach out to our speakers or to find out how we can help you, right, simply scan the QR code that you can see in my background or in Thomas's background, which leads you to our contact form. Our next speaker is Mr. Choo, advisor to TechJDI. He's passionate about creating a positive impact on people's lives through the usage of technology. Kelly believes that innovation is about solving problems with existing and new solutions combined expertly. A founding partner in True Global Ventures, 4+ Fund, which has Animoca brands and the Sandbox in their portfolio, Kelly has invested in 2 startups which are now unicorns. Despite his accomplishments, Kelly constantly seeks to build disruptive innovations. As founder of ReferReach, he is building a peer-qualified, trust-based network that makes networking, deal sourcing, and solution seeking more effective, efficient, and scalable. Thank you, Kelly, for being here with us today. Over to you.
Thanks, Jason. Let me just share my slides here. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. I'm Kelly, and thanks, Jason, for the introduction. And I think there is a poll that's coming out, so if you can just kindly fill up the poll, I would have a better sense of who is in the audience today, so I can focus a little bit more about what you're more concerned about, or which level are you at this current moment. So I'm going to be speaking about NFTs, digital assets, and gaming, focusing a lot more on the GameFi area, which is about game and DeFi, and really talk about it at a high level, and then giving some opportunities. But before I even start, I think the most important thing here is the disclaimer, right? I think as Harish mentioned, this is only for informational purposes. It is not investment advice. And I point you to the bottom here. Cryptocurrencies, be it digital assets, tokens, coins, NFTs, are highly risky. You have to be prepared to, and you might lose all of the value in investments. So do not invest unless you are ready to lose everything. Okay, with that disclaimer out of the way, what is the agendas that we have today? There'll be 5 parts of my speech. Who we are as a fund, what is GameFi, why NFTs in games, because a lot of people have been asking, why do you need this in games? The market opportunities that I see, and what you need to take note of. Okay. And so who are we, right? We are a global blockchain fund here based in Singapore under the MAS VCFM license, Venture Capital Fund Manager license, with over 100 million capital to deploy. We only invest in serial entrepreneurs, and we focus on later stage companies. And our portfolio now has 2 unicorns, one already went public and one more going public now, right? And we've invested so far, I think we've announced 14 deals so far, 14, and we continue to invest in the next few disruptive blockchain companies out there. So some of our portfolios include Animoca, which just recently appeared on Forbes. You can go Google it and you can go read about it. Yak, who is based in Hong Kong, is the chairman there. And he has done a lot in the last few years to transform the whole Web3 industry, not only in the game space, but every part of blockchain itself. And then we have Sandbox, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, where SoftBank just came in recently in the last couple of months to invest. And this is probably SoftBank's first crypto or tokenized investment. So as a fund, we only invest in equity. We do not invest in crypto or tokens directly. So what is GameFi? GameFi is about games. Some of you might recognize this. It's what we call Axie Infinity. It's almost like a Tamagotchi plus a bit of games that are very popular nowadays, where it's basically a card game with some animation. But the more important question is, what is DeFi? And DeFi is about decentralized finance. It's a field where token-based transactions are used to either lend or borrow on blockchain. Okay, think about it like a decentralized way of borrowing and lending, assets. The other thing about DeFi is that tokens rewards are granted to performance based on whether you win a battle, based on whether you mine a resource, or whether you did something within the game that the game developers want you to do. And sometimes we call this play to earn or P2E. Okay, so users can earn money passively by letting others use or mine their virtual land, their assets, or even the digital characters and items. Okay, that's one example. And the other thing is also what we call staking, where you can earn a yield, so think of it like interest, while putting it in a liquidity pool. So think about it like a depositing money in a bank, so the bank can then loan money out to others, right? Whether to corporates or individuals. So all these are run by the blockchain. So there's no centralized organization. It's all trusted by code, right? Or what we call the smart contract, right? So that's what we, at a high level, call what we call DeFi. So Gamefight is essentially the game plus DeFi elements put together. And there are, opportunities, because this is very, very new, where people especially in, growing economies like Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, they are playing these games to either put food on the table because COVID has, obviously disrupted their livelihood, or, essentially supplement some of their wages. So when we look at Gamefight itself, and tech companies, we love to look at a lot of these layers, right? Layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. But more importantly, when you say Gamefight, you don't only mean one layer, you mean multiple layers, right? So layer 1 is basically where you develop the games itself, right? This is what we call the development kits. The blockchains itself, so everyone I think would know about Ethereum, and maybe there are others that we might not know about straight away. And then there are launch pads. So companies where actually they launch these games out. So Engine Starter is also one example of a portfolio of ours where you basically can launch new games through them. So they basically help you raise funds, help you do the marketing, help you build the community around the games. And then there are what we call the player experiences layer, where these are guilds. So this is where companies, organizations come together. They basically build a collection of gamers coming together to play your game, to test your game, to go out there, right? So there are collection and communities of these games. And of course, layer 5 is the games itself. Okay, so Axie Infinity and all these others. So we talk about Gamefight, we need to be very specific which layer we're speaking about when you want to look at this or you want to invest. Axie Infinity is one example of a game which dominated or is dominating now the play to earn, even though now they are experiencing some downtrends, they can see. But the important thing is this, they've done $4.14 billion of transactions so far. Okay, that's $4.14 billion. And at the peak, when they were the most popular, they were doing 40 million revenues a day. Sorry about that. So that's quite a lot of money, obviously, per day. And they are still dominating the whole GameFi space now. And in terms of Axie Infinity, and of course this applies to not just Axie Infinity, but a lot of other play-to-earn games. What is the structure like? The structure is as follows. The guilds, who is the organization, think about them like associations, right? They bulk buy the NFTs for these games itself. In this case, Axie Infinity. So they do get discounts, they do get different kinds of perks. They agree on a revenue share between the guild manager and scholar. So a manager basically manages many scholars. A scholar is a person that plays the game. In exchange, they basically give these scholars the items, because these items can range from hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars, right? And as the scholars are playing, they do a rev share. And these rev shares can then be put back into the guild and to the managers, right? So as I mentioned to you just now, I think this structure is something very interesting because this creates a lot of unbanked people to get bank accounts, in this case, wallets, right? And this has created a whole industry by itself in the play-to-earn industry. So this is only one example under the Axie Infinity game. This structure is now being replicated to all the other games out there on the play-to-earn basis. Okay, so guilds, managers, and scholars. In this case, these are not the scholars that we know in Singapore. Right? These are the scholars that are playing the games and earning money and putting food on the table. So why is Axie Infinity so disruptive? I think the first thing is that previously, if you look on the top left-hand side here, these were some of the projections that they did previously about July revenues all the way to December 2021. And they were projecting about 100 over million revenues, monthly revenues. But in reality, they over exceeded the revenues. You can see here, right? In 1 month, the highest month, they actually did $800 million worth of sales. Okay. Now, of course, there is a crypto correction. So you'll see that actually these revenues are dropping. But overall, they've done extremely well, right? Over the expectations. And this has actually sparked off a lot of gaming companies, right? The traditional gaming studios, game companies that are looking into this and saying, hey, can we change our model, right? Because today, a lot of the model is about, pay and win, right? You have to go in there, you download the game for free, you buy items, and then you win. But this model is now changing to the play to earn model also. In terms of gamers, right? In terms of market opportunities, there are about 2.7 billion gamers. And you can see that every year there is a steady increase on the number of gamers going forward. And Asia Pacific itself already represents more than double the revenue generated in North America. So this is really the place for growth in terms of gaming. And in terms of the market itself, the games market is now larger than the music and the film industry combined. And this was in 2019. So now in 2022, this is even more true, right? Because more and more people are gaming, they're playing, and they're paying, for these games. This is really a birth of a new asset class, because in 2019 itself, it was about $60 billion. Now by 2022, this year, it's more than 100 billion. Some estimates actually now is bigger than 100 billion. It's about 120 billion this year itself. So why NFTs in games, right? A lot of people ask, and a lot of people have pushed back. So I borrowed a little bit of slides from Animoca Brands, who is also one of our portfolio, about how they explain this. First is about true digital ownership. The problem with games today is that they are what we call a rental economy. If a game shuts down, you lose everything in the game. Imagine if you go and buy a shirt, right, from G2000, let's say, for example, and G2000 shuts down. Would you lose your shirt? You probably should not lose your shirt, right? So the same for games today. You must have items that you can take from the game and move it around if needed, or bring it to another metaverse or bring it to another game. That's what we call true digital ownership. And NFTs enable that today. It must be secure and immutable, so nobody can change it. The game developers cannot decide that, oh, I will just change it today because I feel like it. So it should not be able to allow for that. And they must be able to do trading freely anywhere in the world. It should not be confined to the game developers that say, you can only trade this, you cannot trade that, right? There are some cases where the game developers actually ban the users from trading. And of course, it must be cross, application interoperable, right? So there is actually a lot of value for something that you can trade anywhere. So we look at it like this, right? Prosperity is really about having an open economy, like having a free trade. You cannot have towns like this, right, where resources do not flow among each other. And this is what is happening today in games. You cannot take let's say a sword, a digital sword, and you cannot move it around, right? There is no ways to do this. But where NFT games and where all this Gamefight is going is, it makes it easy for us to actually trade all these items around different games itself. And this is very important in order to have this free trade mindset. When we look at the metaverse, there's actually two types if you look at it broadly, right? One is what we call open metaverse and what we call closed metaverse. So on the left, you see the closed metaverse like Fortnite, World of Warcraft, Second Life, Roblox, Minecraft. These are all popular names. And then on the right side, we see the open metaverse, meaning you can take the land that you buy, the items that you have, and you can move it around. It's owned by you. Nobody else can take it away from you, basically. And we looked at, in terms of the trading itself, you can see that the number one place to trade NFTs is OpenSea. But the number one game is really Axie Infinity. And it's only a fraction of this, obviously, because this is just games. These are all sorts of NFTs, big art, music, different things there, right? So we are seeing and tracking these opportunities now, and we want to be able to look at how all these play out. But I would say that in general, the games are growing strong, right? Obviously, the art side, the music side is also growing strong now. And you can see that very clearly that it's been growing. So in the last, I would say 4 months or so, it has grown from 3 billion to about 4 billion in terms of Axie Infinity. And we see games like Sandbox coming up, which are more metaverse games, popping into the top 10. What is this whole land rush about, right? If you can go on there and look at it, one of the examples is Sandbox, where you have Snoop Dogg, the rapper, Ubisoft, the game developer, Gucci, The Walking Dead. These are all brands that people understand from our current world, and they're all coming in because they want to interact with the next generation of users, right? Adidas, all these guys are all coming into their metaverse. They're buying plots of land, and they're using those lands to market themselves or to give their fans experiences. So I want to show you a next video of one of the metaverse that is now going into alpha. You can actually go sign up and find out yourself what is the whole hoo-ha about. And I'll play this video for you to have a look. in the next slide after this. So what are some of the top projects out there? So CryptoPunks, Bored Ape, and Doodles, these are all NFT arts out there. The top two more are Sandbox and Decentraland. These are more metaverses. And you can see in the last 7 days, they have humongous volumes going through in terms of people buying and selling their assets. Right. So you see, for example, Sandbox has done about 400 million all time so far. And they are only about 2 years in. Okay, so I'll stop there, and you can probably Google it and look at the videos itself. So what are some opportunities that we see out there? You can be an investor, right, direct or through regulated funds. You can obviously be a play-to-earn player, which obviously sucks a lot of time, but that could work. You could be a manager to manage the scholars out there. So I know of some friends who have started their own scholarship programs. You can be a partner of Web3 companies, go out there, or you can obviously launch your own NFT projects. And I guess we can talk about that more in the Q&A later on. So what do you need to really take note of? This is extremely high risk, as I mentioned to you. So you must be able to afford to lose everything. Which layers are you looking at? This is very, very important because you can't say Gamefight. You have to look at which are the layers. Do you want to look at the bottom layer or you want to look at the top layer, which is the games itself? And you must be able to study the community well. So go look at Telegram, Twitter, Discord, and don't just be convinced by the quantity because the quality is the key. And you can, of course, partner with blue chip projects. So you want to make sure that these founders or these drivers reveal themselves, because in Web3, in the metaverse, a lot of people like to stay anonymous, which is not good, right? Because you don't know who they are. They probably do not have the reputation, or they basically can run away if you are not careful, right? And we can talk more about this in the Q&A session later. So with that, if you want to connect, just feel free to scan the QR code or type in bit.ly/connect Kelly. I'll be glad to help you, navigate this. And I would love to talk to you more during the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing your insights. I'm sure we will be looking out for the next unicorn from True Global Ventures. When I asked our next speaker, Mr. Jackson, who is also an advisor with Tech JDI, what innovation means to him, he has this to share, a quote from Bill Gates. Innovation is the most powerful force for change in the world. As a programmer and head of the Digital Business Transformation Center at Temasek Polytechnic, Jackson believes that he's playing his part one line of code at a time. He has developed blockchain prototypes in collaboration with industry partners and also leads a team of staff and students to implement these solutions. Thank you, Jackson, for transforming businesses and the lives of people through innovation. Over to you.
Oh, I just realized I was muted. All right, thanks, Jason. Thanks a lot. I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about a project that I've spent some time to do because it aligns with my interest in technology, in blockchain, and in watches. So I'd like to share that to you, and I hope that by sharing that, right, it gives you a little insight about what blockchain, smart contract, and NFT are about, and how it could be applied in the area of your interest and focus. Similar to what Kelly mentioned just now, today, whatever contents that I covered are educational, informational, and any opinions expressed are my own and should not be taken as professional financial investment advice. Right. So that's me. I'm part of this team called the Digital Business Transformation Center at Temasek Polytechnic. We do industry projects. So if you have a dream that you would like to join me to dream together, or if you have a dream that you would like me to join you to dream together, right? Please contact me. We love to do prototyping projects with industries, right? Okay, so a couple of interesting news came up, and I think that got a lot of people interested in NFTs, blockchain, like for example, this one, where digital artwork from Mike, right, was sold for 69 million. My jaw opened wide when I saw this last year. And then my jaw opened even wider when I saw this. This boy here took little pictures of himself every day, put it up on an NFT platform, and it sells for $1 million. I'm sure you have been wondering, right? Why does this happen? Why is this worth $1 million? Frankly, if you ask me, right, I couldn't figure as well. But if you were to go to these platforms that currently sells NFT artworks, digital artworks, you realize that there's a lot of this sort of digital artwork that's being sold. Some sells for a lot of money, some don't sell for a lot of money, but you could go on to these platforms to take a look and admire this digital artwork. I thought they're interesting to look at. All right. So before I share with you this little idea, right, I thought I could do a little introduction about what blockchain is, and I'd like to do it in the form of a demonstration. I've recorded a demonstration, so I shall narrate as I play my video. So what you see here is a digital wallet. So what you see here is a digital wallet, similar to, for example, a Dash wallet, a Grab wallet. But the difference between this digital wallet or a Grab wallet, right, is that this one stores ethers, which is a form of cryptocurrency. So currently I have Zoe. Zoe has 8 ethers. Oops, sorry. I should play. Yeah. So what's happening here is this. The difference between a digital wallet like this and a digital wallet like the one that you use for Dash or Grab is this. Information on the digital wallet, right, is well and available if you want to see it. So over here, you are looking at an Etherscan platform. Just now you saw the digital wallet, it says that it has 8 ethers. And then if I go to the wallet address on Etherscan, you would see that if you know the address of that person's wallet, you would see the total amount of ethers in that person's wallet, and you would see all the transaction that has happened on this wallet. So that's one of the premise of blockchain. Anything that gets written onto a blockchain is public and well and available for anybody who wants to see it. So yep, so here you are. So what I'm doing here is this. I'm showing you a second wallet, which is Ali's wallet. So Ali has got 0.0642, and you could also view the details of this wallet on the blockchain. So anybody who knows the address of the wallet could see all the transactions that is happening on this wallet on the blockchain. Right. So what's happening now is this. I'm doing a send. I'm getting Zoe to send 1 ether to Ali. So it's happening now, yeah. So 1 ether is on its way to go from Zoe to Ali. It's just like sending money, right, from Grab wallet, from one Grab wallet to another Grab wallet. And you could see that again on the, we call this the Blockchain Explorer. It is the platform for you to monitor blockchain transactions, and the blockchain transaction is now pending a send of 1 ether from one person's wallet to another person's wallet. So right there and available for you to see it, and it is well and available on the blockchain. Could you then say, oh, I regret sending this. Could you please cancel that transaction? So on a blockchain, that's not possible. You could ask Ali to return you the money, but you couldn't go to the blockchain and say, can we cancel this? Can we pretend that I've never seen this transaction has never happened before? You can't do this on the blockchain. So anything that's written onto the blockchain is immutable. It stays there forever. Yeah, and nobody has the right to remove anything from it. Transactions are all seen. So if you go to a block on the blockchain, you will be able to see all the transactions that's happening on the blockchain. Once it is there forever. Nobody owns the database because everybody who's collectively a player, a user on the blockchain participates in ensuring that transactions always stays on the blockchain. So that's the premise of a blockchain. That's what makes a blockchain, and that's what makes it different from conventional database technology or systems that are owned by a particular party, right? So there you are. Right, so let's talk about my second passion. my second passion is watches. I love watches. I love watches a lot. This is an advertisement from Patek Philippe. Patek Philippe has got this long-held slogan, which basically says that you never actually own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it for the next generation. So those of you who love watches as well, right? You probably realize this. A watches does a lot more today than tell the time. It is something that you would keep, admire, pass down to your children, and you know that at some point of time when you cease to exist, you want your kid to hold on to your watch, and you want your grandchild to hold on to your watch, and they need to be able to verify that the watch is real as it passes down from generations to generations. You may not be around anymore, your kid may not be around anymore, but you want the watch, and the fact that the watch has got its information, its data, the fact that it's authentic, you want this to stay there forever. But you do know that the watch manufacturer might cease to exist as well. Right, so you know that. So today, right, when we buy and sell watches among us enthusiasts, we make sure that the watch comes in a full set. What do you mean by a watch comes in a full set? When you sell the watch, you have to sell the watch, you have to sell the certificates that comes with the watch, you have to sell the box that comes with the watch, you have to sell everything that you got when you first received the watch. And that ensures that the next person who takes over your watch takes over everything. And if somebody goes to him and asks him, can you please prove to me that your watch is authentic? He takes out a piece of paper and says, look, here is the watch certificate, so my watch is authentic. Is this the best way to do it? I think it can be better. Why? Because very often when watches change hands from one hand to another over years, typically the watch stays there, but the box disintegrated. The papers gets torn, the papers gets lost, especially for watches that has been around for 30, 40 years. Those of you who likes to keep Rolexes that are 30 to 40 years old, right, probably know that watches of those era typically don't come with their papers, but you still want to make sure that these watches are real. You still want to make sure they comes in a full set. So here is a business case, and really it does not just apply to watches. It applies to anything that you know you need to maintain the authenticity, the fact that it is real, the fact that there is a certificate. You want to ensure that even after, long after the manufacturer may cease to exist, long after the manufacturers may cease to exist, and long after, right, the person who sells it may cease to exist. So how does it work? Let's imagine this as an NFT. So here you are, this is a demo that I did. So when the manufacturer makes the watch, the manufacturer enters the model of the watch, and the manufacturer enters the manufacturing date of the watch and the serial number of the watch, take a picture of the watch and puts it in, presses the go button, creates the NFT for the watch. So now the NFT stays on the blockchain, and the NFT represents the watch. If I want to know if my watch is authentic, right, all I need to do is to go to the blockchain, enter the serial number, and I see this information about the watch. Is it there forever? It is there for as long as the blockchain is there. Yeah. So what happens when the manufacturer then sells the watch? So this is what he does. Right. So I walk into the boutique, right, and I said, I'd like to buy the watch. So the boutique, then the watch boutique then say, okay, can you please go to your phone? I'm going to send you the NFT, and this represents the certificate for the watch. So he will enter my address, he will enter my wallet address, presses the go button, and the NFT of the watch gets transferred from the boutique to me. And now I'm the proud owner of the watch, as well as the fact that I own the certificate of the watch as well. So it's right there. So that's how it gets transferred. The other cool thing about this is this: when I sell the watch later on to the next person, or when I pass it on to my kid, I could do the same. Yeah. So now the NFT of the watch that provides a certification for the watch now belongs to my kid. Yeah. So let's do a quick recap. Yeah. Why is this better? You know, why is this better than a paper certificate? First of all, it's permanent. It stays there on the blockchain even after you cease to exist. The certificate stays there. It is not fakeable because you could simply visit the blockchain explorer, enter the smart contract, enter the token ID, enter the serial number, and you are going to be able to see that it is right there. The next thing is really important to me. Sometimes when I sell watches, right? When I sell watches to the next person, I ask, is this third hand? Is this fourth hand? Well, now you know, because the history of the NFT as it gets transferred from person to person is known. So the history is known, and you know how many hands it has gone through. If it has marked as stolen, then you know as well, so that you don't buy it. So does this just apply to watches? It doesn't, yeah. It applies to anything that you think is valuable enough to ensure its authenticity of. So watches, diamonds, expensive bags, yeah, lots of other things. So there you are. So I hope this gives you an idea of what the real world usage of NFT and how it could apply to you, your interests, how it could well align with your interests, it aligns with mine. So if you'd like to read more about it, or if you'd like to talk to me about ideas, right, here's my email address. I maintain a personal website, and that's my phone number. Thanks, guys.
Right. Thank you, Jackson, for sharing with us how these technologies are transforming the future of tomorrow. You know, innovation takes time. And for every yes to a great idea, there are 1,000 no's. Our next speaker, Dr. John Lee, knows this extremely well because in his words, he has survived the most competitive market on planet Earth, which is China, where he spent over 15 years. He's a seasoned entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience in emerging tech sectors such as gaming technologies and artificial intelligence. He's also an inventor with over 500 patents filed with the US Patent and Trademark Office, as well as the China Patent Office. Ladies and gentlemen, before I introduce Dr. John to come to take over the screen, there's definitely some poll questions which we would love for you to answer. So as the poll questions come up, do take a moment to answer them as Dr. John prepares to do his sharing as well. In the meantime, Dr. John, over to you whenever you are ready. Sorry, Dr. John, you are on mute. Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, sir. Can you guys hear me?
Thank you so much. Could you kindly
Okay.
start again? Thank you.
Morning, guys. Thanks for having me. My name is John. I'm the founder, CEO of this company called VIZZIO. We just landed in Singapore at the start of the COVID. I spent like 15 years in China, and I built a company in China and doing something similar. Before that, before China, I was in UK. I was a founder of another company funded by SoftBank. So, okay, back to today's topic, Web 3.0. Okay, I think the rest of the experts are, the rest of the speakers are experts in the area of NFT and blockchain. But I would like to give you another view of what I see Web 3.0 will be. So, as you guys are probably aware that the browser is the best delivery of media. We have been consuming 2D content for the last God knows how many 15, 20 years, right? Since the evolution of Mozilla in the early days, Netscape and stuff. So we are going to I'm going to show you how the browser space is going to transform, and this will be part of the whole Web 3.0 revolution. We are in the space, VIZZIO as a company is in the space of, Isaac. We are in the space of modeling cities, objects, spaces, and humans. Essentially, the content platform for what we see is the next web revolution. Okay, so I guess I need not introduce. You probably have seen a lot of metaverses being announced by the big boys and also startups and also billion-dollar unicorn. Mostly you will see this kind of content popping up all over the place. I'm born in the 70s, so it's kind of like reliving the Second Life days, like gamification plus a lot of 3D content, right? Meta, Facebook company announced they're going to place a big bets on the metaverse. I think in a nutshell, I would summarize whether you call it metaverse or omniverse. I think the Web3 is experiencing a new kind of revolution. I think content is transforming. So our kind of metaverse is we think that the ability to clone and make 3D objects, spaces, buildings, cities, a one-to-one replica of the real world, not necessarily the low polygon world, is what we are trying to achieve. Right? I'm not necessarily an expert in blockchain and NFT, but those are essential in the whole transactional capability, security, DAOs of the internet. But I think as humans, we have been consuming text, audio, visual, and even videos, and with live streaming, I see the browser experiencing the next growth. And the next growth might be interactive and immersive 3D content in your browser, right? So if you look at this chart, which I took a leaf from Nvidia, they summarize the 2D internet world, which is the last internet revolution. We have been consuming the audio, text, images, and video. The big boys of this space, needless, I need not mention, I think Google is already indexing all your 2D information. And the 2D world, the physical world, and in the link with internet is via the browser. We see the new metaverse as a new virtual world where we will be experiencing a new kind of content, interactive and immersive 3D content. And we are thinking the browser might be another good media to share your 3D stuff. So if you want to create this kind of 3D content, like cloning objects, modeling spaces, mapping out entire city in 3D, and also modeling human. This is quite a challenging paradigm, and I think we as a company has the ability to create this kind of massive scale, machine scale kind of interactive 3D content for the browser. So to summarize, you'll probably be seeing a lot of all this interactive 3D content on the browser, propelling new growth in e-commerce, advertisement, all happening in your browser. No apps to install, no AR, no VR, just a click of a button. The tricky part is how to create this kind of real-world, photorealistic 3D content, one-to-one replica of the object, and make it part of your business strategy, right, for your transformation. So probably you'll be buying watches like this, interacting with the watch and looking at all the watches, changing and customizing, looking at the internals, etc. Right? So we think, and also what about space, right? I think you probably have seen a lot of 3D virtual tour on the web, but what about space that can capture live moment happening on the ground? Look at this lady playing the musical instrument live. You can see it live there, right? While you navigate and immerse yourself into a space, right? So the ability to create space, I think, is no-brainer. Everybody is now so familiar with 3D virtual tour. But what I'm giving you, what I'm empowering you is, I'm letting you see what is happening on the ground. Real-time video stitched inside a 3D space in real time, right? So you could imagine going to a MICE event, going to a shopping mall, you'll be experiencing new kind of 3D content on the web. Photorealistic world with real-time happening on the ground, captured and streamed to your 3D space. Like example, I'll be buying a stuff from the web, and this girl will be introducing the product to me, right? Okay, this is my office in China, and even me, look, it looks like an ordinary 3D space, but look at it. While I navigate inside a browser, look at all my screen is animating and real time. Right? And people are walking around, right? We are seeing the transformation of the internet content in this kind of space, right? Not just necessarily static content, not just images or video, but interactive, immersive, navigational 3D content where you can see people on the ground walking, doing their work, etc., etc. Right? Okay, so we show you real-time happening on the ground, but what about interactivity? So when I zoom now to this space, I walk towards a robot, I press a button to activate the robot and put something on the shelf. And this is happening in the browser. You must imagine the real digital twin is happening and content is transforming from flat content to 3D content. And we have the means of doing that, right? So if you refuse to be, if you look further, so I can turn back, walk around and walk towards that wall. Can you see the wall is also animated? It's live, it's happening on the ground. The lights are blinking and stuff, right? So what about visiting museum? You'll be this kind of experience rather than looking at images and videos and stuff. So we think we are more interested in how the web is transforming, how content is transforming from flat to 3D, right? What about cities? Okay, so you probably are familiar. Our government has spent, quite a serious effort on digitizing our entire city, our Singapore. The Virtual Singapore project was done using drones. They fly drones over a number of years, and then they have humans to model the world, right? The challenge is this, right? The challenge is not in creating the 3D content. That kind of approach will not scale. The challenge is how to give you a 3D city without using drone and give you the most recent 3D city and the most frequently updated 3D cities. So we have a project here that we map out the entire planet Earth using satellite. Right? Satellites give you 2D images, but we have the ability to convert 3D from 2D satellite images into 3D city models using algorithms and AI. So we created the entire Singapore in 2 weeks, not 4 years. And make it navigational, browsable across all your devices. And we made France in 3D in 4.5 weeks, entire France, without sending a single drone. And we are scheduled to complete planet Earth covering 510 million square kilometers in 4 years, 10,258 cities. So the Google Earth approach, as in the rest of the 99.9% of the world approach, is to use drones and fly planes, right? We are using AI with satellite imagery. We are creating 3D city models without sending a single drone to the country, right? So today there are about 10,258 cities. We are, by 2023 Q1, we will overtake Google Earth in the number of 3D models you have on the browser. And we're going to launch a new domain called geo.ai, which will let you see the real world in 3D, right? And currently we have already processed 28 cities and covering 29.4 million square kilometers, 192 petabytes of Earth cities in 3D models have been created. So the traditional approach of flying drones and getting humans to fix a model takes time, takes humans, laborious effort and stuff. We think we have a better approach, like an AI. You treat it like an AI box. You give me satellite imagery, I'm able to turn them into high fidelity 3D model. This could be used for city planning, master planning, defense, gamification, and many, many more, right? Real estate, etc. Right? So we have patented this idea. We call it JoeEarth. We have 14 patents with regards to the ability to model entire cities into 3D model using satellite imagery, right? So these are the, okay, so to show you, to give you a glimpse of how we do satellite imagery, how you do 3D model from satellite imagery, we can have a look at this. Once we get a satellite imagery, it's not just plain computing the 3D model. We have to remove the shadow. We have to compute the building envelope. Once we get the volume and the height and shape of the building, then we start texturing. So this ability gives you recency. Recency is important. What good is a city model if it's 4 years old, right? You may fly a drone like Singapore. It's about 728 square kilometers. To complete Singapore, flying the drone will probably take you 2 years or 1 year, right? And then it will take you another 1 year or 2 years for human modelers to trace and fix those models, right? All my city models are done by algorithms and AI, right? I give you a comparison between us and Google Earth. The left is Google Earth of our PUB, Public Utilities Board. On the right is us. So you can see the PUB on Google Earth is flattened. It's an orthographic image. On the right is us. We modeled the entire PUB and also DS and Savannah Jurong. You have the CMPB and DSTA. Of course, this is US and many more examples. And this is modeling entire Australia. Right. Okay, so and this is modeling entire Guangdong province, 177,900 square kilometers. As you probably know, Google drones cannot fly to China. There is no 3D model of China on your Google Earth. Right? This is building the entire Guangdong province, 177,900 square kilometers using satellite imagery. That's it. Right? So why are governments using this? They are using it for city planning, for security, for master planning, for real estate, for education, for simulation, and many, many, many more, right? But imagine this being used for games. While you parachute you into a low polygon, what you can do today with the low polygon world, we can empower you with the high fidelity one-to-one replica of the real world, right? And it's all 3D assets. So this is modeling entire Shenzhen, and New York, and also Tokyo, 2,194 square kilometer, and then we also model entire London, UK, for real estate purposes. They want to visualize how this thing fit into the real estate. And guess where is this? This is a country, Taiwan and Taipei. Nobody will have a model of Taiwan and Taipei, right? On the Google version, it's all flat. It's all satellite because no drones are allowed to fly to Taipei and Taiwan, right? As in London, as in all the Muslim countries and China, right? So how we model Taiwan, we probably can see the step is pretty much similar. You get the polygons first, remove the shadow, you get the building envelopes, and then you start modeling. Street level of Singapore using satellite. How did we do that? You saw that we have the entire city map into multiple resolution. When I zoom down to this resolution, I just need to upgrade the texture of the facade of my building, right? Because I already have the building geometry, right? So this is the quickest way ever to map and model cities from high up entire city to street level and to indoor and outdoor. And this is exciting times, and this is something that we are working with the governments and some of the ministry in creating the next phase of virtual Singapore. Scalable, not just human scale, but machine scale, right? Savannah Jurong. So all these are done in a matter of days and a week, right? Instead of months or years. And there is no humans that are on the ground using tripod mounted LiDAR or LiDAR mounted vehicles to go scanning. There's nothing of that sort. It's all done by AI. You can imagine AI is building our world, building photorealistic world, one-to-one exact replica of our world. And this can be used in many assets. And we think internet is transforming to this space. You can talk about the blockchain and NFT, but those are non-visual. We human cannot comprehend. I think we know how to build business out of content, right? If I present this opportunity to you, the ability to create 3D assets quickly from object to space to entire city, I'm sure you can transform your website at the minimum. You can offer a lot of content services on top of that. And this is the most recent one, ITE College East, right? You probably seen on the College East side, on Google Earth, there is nothing on Google Earth for ITE East because I think it's near some airbase. Right? We are able to map the whole College East from high up right down to street level. And we are delivering this digital twin for all the ITEs. Right? Then they will start ingesting IoT sensors, CCTV, and start to do their day-to-day operational work. And what about Sentosa? This is our version of Sentosa. You can see all the 3D models, all the bungalows and cities and stuff. This is Google version of Sentosa. It's all flat. It's all satellite imagery because Google drone cannot fly to Sentosa, or maybe there's an agreement not to let Google have a map of Sentosa, right? And this is our version, right? So last one, okay, the last bit of it is I'm going to show you humans. What about digitizing human, right? We are creating photorealistic human right now.
Hello, saya orang simulasi 3 di Anda Tiaoka. Saya gembira dapat bertemu dengan Anda. Tolong beri saya nasihat.
So we are now even training Singlish. So they speak 60 languages. We can create virtual persona of anyone, or we can use synthetic human, and they'll be used. We are now deployed across so many customer services. Right. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. John, for sharing so much. We need to, unfortunately, reserve some sharings during the panel and Q&A sessions.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. John, once again, for sharing so passionately about your vision and how can look in the world in a new way through your visualization technology and the changes it will bring to the future. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been so much shared, but this is not the end yet. At this point of time, we will be inviting all our speakers to join us in a session moderated by Thomas, Managing Partner of TechJDI's Venture Studio. If you have any questions to ask, please send them via the Q&A tab. We have some questions that has been sent. I think some of them have been captured by our team, and we will be answering them in a short while. In the meantime, Thomas, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jason. And so now it's time for our panel and roundtable. I'd like to start off with Mr. Kelly Choo to begin with. You have been a founding partner in TGV 4+, as you have already shared earlier on. And in fact, you've already nurtured 2 unicorns so far, and probably more to come. Tell me about what you look out for when investing in startups in this particular space.
Sure, thanks Thomas for the question. I think a couple of things that we look out for is, number one, if the team is, at least from our point of view, there must have at least one serial entrepreneur. Someone has done it before, exited in a previous company. It doesn't have to be exactly the same company or same industry, but he or she must have exited before, because that gives a lot of credibility in terms of the execution power and the ability to actually exit the company itself. So for us, we always look for at least one person within the execution team, the operational team, that is a serial entrepreneur. The second thing that we look for is also the timing, right? Do we believe that this particular company is actually in the right timing, the right space? Because sometimes, I mean, even in our own experience itself, in our previous fund, when we invested in this blockchain in, I think it was 2016, 2017, it was super early. right? At the time, we were just educating the market, right? I remember very clearly one of the startups that we invested in, they went to about, I think, 100 over banks, and they educated these 100 over banks in terms of blockchain, what is blockchain. But there was no will to actually implement any of these technologies at the time. But now it may be different, right? Because I think a lot of awareness is there. People get to have their own Bitcoin or Ethereum. They get to know about all these things. And so the corporations, the organizations are ready to implement. So I think timing is also very, very important for us as a second point. The third point is whether they want to go global. So if they're only playing within their geographic location, whether it's Asia or Europe or US, that's great. But it doesn't allow us to actually help them to grow, globally. One of the reasons that we're called True Global Ventures is because we have about 45 partners in about 20 overseas cities. So we do want to help them to grow as quickly as possible overseas, so as to get the technology adopted. So we want to look whether this company is, number one, ready to go overseas. Number two, able to go overseas, that when we help them. And I'll say these are the three main factors that we look at. Besides obviously having a solid technology that can solve a problem.
So while you talk about serial entrepreneurship, there are people in the audience that are probably new to the startup space. How about entrepreneurs from other sectors outside of technology? Will you consider them as well?
If they sold their company, yes. then we would definitely consider them. So it doesn't have to be technology. It can be consulting. It can be any other company that they've built up to a certain size and sold it successfully or exited either through M&A or IPO or any other means.
Great, thank you. Now a question for Dr. John. You're obviously a prolific entrepreneur. You've built multiple companies in various different regions in the world, including in the UK, in China, and in Singapore. Could you talk us through some of the challenges, first of all, of building a startup in the technology space like this? And secondly, how do you find it's different in the UK versus in China and in Singapore today?
Okay, so thank you for having me. I spent the better part of my 30 years out of Singapore, 15 years in UK and 15 years in China. And I moved to China before the Olympics. So I also experienced the growth of China. And coming back to Singapore, I also experienced another culture shock. Most people see me more Chinese than Singaporean. But I would say we are in challenging times. Post-COVID, it is an excellent opportunity for our government and companies like us who are innovating. And you can see there are many Chinese companies coming over to Singapore to set up the global HQ. A lot of Western economy have trusted us in the past years, and they have also built up the investment in this part of the world. I read somewhere that EDB has an excellent year last year, getting a lot more investment before COVID. So I think like our forefathers, we need to play our cards well. Having to know the East and the West, there will be a bipolar world. We should grill ourselves and get ready ourselves in a new post-COVID world and try to work with the Chinese and the Americans. The reason why I set up VIZZIO here is because I don't want to be labeled a Chinese company in China. So China, my Chinese company, the equivalent of VIZZIO in China, they are going IPO end of the year. So I would restrict the business strictly to China, and I will see Singapore as our global international outpost, and using Singapore as our launch pad, riding on our government international renowned credibility and transparency, good governance. This is an excellent opportunity for us because ASEAN is 650 million population, half the size of Singapore. Is equally exciting, right? It's not in my early days of Singapore in the late 90s, Singapore tried to be a Silicon Valley, but I think Singapore is really a very attractive place for entrepreneurs like us, using it as a launchpad for international expansion. Yeah, thank you.
And do you find that dealing with, in your area of the metaverse, especially in your effort to try to digitize the whole world, how difficult has it been working with the different regulatory authorities across all these different countries?
I'm very glad you asked the question. Very good question. When I came back, people labeled me, people thought I'm Chinese. And then they get very uncomfortable with a lot of the Chinese references and stuff. I have to thank my team and my, and all the partners and government agencies and customers who have given me the opportunity. In the last half a year, we signed up 25 customers. So we have established credibility here, but it was an uphill task for us in the beginning. But I'm very glad that, because as in anyone, even if you prove in the biggest market in China, you still need to prove it to the West. And Singapore will be a platform for me to launch our global admission. And I think Metaverse is at the right time. The rest of the world call it Metaverse, but I've been doing 3D for the web for the last God knows how many years. So I think it's the right time for companies like us. We are rightly positioned to seize this opportunity, like many other players in this field. This market is huge, big enough for everyone.
Thank you. Very exciting. And now for Mr. Jackson Ng. You are obviously a blockchain enthusiast, and also you head up the Digital Transformation Center for Temasek Polytechnic. I'm sure you have worked with various different organizations, both big and small. How would you advise someone in the audience participate in this new economy? How should they innovate in this space? How should they prepare themselves to be ready for Web 3.0?
I think specifically in blockchain, right? There's a lot of hype in this area. So if you read, there's a lot of it. You have to cut through that hype. Cut through the hype so that you have a good understanding of what the technology truly does. So for that reason, to that end, right? Whenever I have questions posed to me, what's blockchain? What's cryptocurrency? I always whip out my phone and then I say, okay, here is the wallet, and then I do a little demonstration. And then when I hear questions or answers, oh, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Then we know that, okay, we have cut through that hype. Let's talk about the next thing. The next thing would be this: how does it align to the work that you do? How does this apply to what you do, the other things that you are interested in? Because this is just technology. This is just a technology layer. It means nothing if it doesn't help you. It means nothing if you couldn't relate it to make the things that you're already doing better. Like in my case, right? So I was sharing that I like watches. So the demo that you have just seen, right, is related to the pain points that I have when I try to trade one watch for another when I'm bored of it. So that's what I meant. There are of course other examples that we have done together with our partners. But eventually, it's that how does it help you? If it doesn't help you, the technology is not useful to you. So that brings me to the third step: prototype, engage, and share, which is something that I really believe in doing. I've always been doing this. Whenever something interesting comes up, build a prototype, share it with as many people as possible. I've been doing this on my blog and on medium.com for a couple of years now. I find that it has really helped a lot because folks from all over the world, right, comes by, pop a message and say, hey, I'd like to see this, I'd like to try this, I'd like to talk to you about this. So the engagement helps, sets me thinking, sets the other guy thinking as well. Prototyping. And when the prototype makes sense, right, especially in the area of blockchain, you can't build this thing alone. It requires a community participation. So it requires a community of people to come together to say, okay, let's do this, let's use this alone. So if the prototype makes sense, then bring together the community and come to use it in a limited business case. And when that works, then let's talk about scaling. So that's how I tend to think about it.
It's very, very interesting. I think there's a common theme here about globalization as well. When we talk about decentralization, right? It's not just the technology or the data that's being decentralized. Innovation is really a global game nowadays. And indeed, Singapore is a great launchpad for this type of innovation.
Yes, it's essentially a philosophy that I have. Some people tend to think, oh, okay, I have an idea, I can't share it because if I share it, it's gone. No, in my perspective, right, when you have an idea, you share it, it gets bigger, more people use it, and you guys we come to innovate on it together, and it gets better. Even though you might not be the sole owner of it, but I think it's a lot more exciting to own a small part of a big piece, right, than an entire piece that nobody cares about.
Yeah. Okay, so let's now address some questions, some very, very interesting questions we got from the floor. The first one, maybe Kelly, you can help us with this, or Jackson, feel free to jump in. how does NFT add value to our society? If it's not hype, do you think it is a bubble?
I can take a step at it first, and then I think Jackson has I guess some views on this. Yeah, so NFTs have been, I mean, it's not that new, right? It's been around for a couple of years already. I think in all new technology, the struggle has always been adoption, right? Like what is the use case for it, right? Like how would it be used? The first use case we've always seen are things like digital collectibles. You buy some, I don't know, 8-bit looking, graphics and art, and then you started to buy random looking, arts, or what they consider art out there. And then it evolved into things like games, evolved into things like, what is called this supply chain. So that's the word I'm looking for.
Traceability, yeah.
Yes, traceability and provenance, right? So I think these are all areas where blockchain has been struggling with for the last few years, and it's only recently, because of I think more mass adoption from the gaming community as well as for the collectibles community, that a lot of these other use cases for enterprises actually started to happen. So one example of a company that we invested in recently is called Chronicle. It is a pharmaceutical and life science supply chain and blockchain solutions company. They have now, after I think 4 or 5 years, become the leading use case or leading technology for all pharmaceutical returns and chargebacks in US. So they have about, I think now 90 or 95% of the market share there. It took them a few years to get there, right? It's not immediate, right? So today, when in the US at least, when some certain drugs are distributed and some of them are returned, there is no way to trace whether these drugs are actually real or not, because a lot of times they may switch it out with something else, or just give you an empty box back, right? So they use blockchain to basically allow you to trace whether the drugs that you get back are real, and this saves lives, right? Imagine that if I swap it out with something that could kill you, right, and then return it back to the manufacturers, and you never tracked whether these drugs are actually real or not, authentic or not. Can you imagine eating one of these, or having your kids eat one of these drugs, and then just falling sick or even passing away? So these are real use cases that we see now, right? After many years of blockchain being trying to be implemented. Just one example of that.
Yes. So there's certainly a feeling that this initial surge in usage for NFTs are really the kind of NFT version 0.1. And the real use cases in the real world will start to come in after the basic infrastructure is built in. Jackson, anything to add on to that?
I think we are at a stage essentially of people scrambling to figure what you could use it for. So like I mentioned, cut through the hype, right? If you look at the pictures, or when I look at some of the pictures that are currently being sold on the NFT platforms, right? Trust me, I'm as bewildered as you about why these are worth money. That much money, even if any money. I'm really as bewildered as you. If you cut through the hype, right? It's about a proof of ownership. That's essentially what NFT does. So it proves that you own something, and it proves it on the blockchain. So you don't need to own your servers. Nobody needs to own the server for this proof to happen. So how could that be applied? So when you cut off the hype, right, it is essentially that. And when you can apply that in the work that you do, right, then you would have benefited society as large, like the example that Kelly has mentioned. Yeah.
Just to add on, I mean, NFTs is really about true digital ownership, and digital ownership means that it can be something physical, or it can be something that is totally digital. It doesn't have to be just one or the other. So you think about it, what do you own? You own a lot of things. And you own, the house, hopefully. You own the rights of certain things. You own a lot of things. And if you believe that NFTs as well as blockchain is able to help you with ownership, or showing that you truly own something, then it affects everyone, and it affects all our lives in one way or the other. It's just that today, because of legacy, we have everything's on, still on pen and paper or databases or various things. So one example, I'll give also another one, is one of the other portfolios that we invested in. They started doing this land register for many years ago. They wanted to figure out if somebody comes to you with a like a paper and says, hey, I own this piece of land, right? Do you need to trust the guy who owns a piece of paper, or do you trust a centralized government where the government may be in certain countries not as honest as the Singapore government, say for example? How do you make sure that you own that piece of land? So they've gone into that kind of areas where we talk about land register, right? That's one example. Another one that I think Jackson was talking about is art. So one of the other portfolio that we invested in is called Picture This. They basically look at photography art, and they tell all the photographers that now they can put in NFTs with their photos, and they can sell limited edition, let's say 100 prints of this particular photo or not. And with every print that they print out and they send to you, they will also attach a tag that shows you that you own truly the physical version of it, just like the example that I think Jackson was talking about in watches, and that that's really the only copy that you have. Let's say 1 out of 100 copies of this particular photographs. So we will see a lot of these coming use case coming up.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Perhaps one more question. Maybe this one for Dr. John. Is blockchain and the metaverse relevant also for traditional businesses and industries like manufacturing?
I think it's entirely relevant. I am also a strong believer of distributed DAOs. I see blockchain as a mechanism for digital ownership and also trackability of your assets in the digital world. Because at the end of the day, with all the contents, you will want to explore new ways of owning assets and having trackability. So I guess they are very much related, but we are in the space of creating content for the metaverse, and marrying blockchain and NFT. You could spawn off many new businesses, either individually or for governments or for individual. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've run out of time. So thank you very much for all your valuable insights today. And I'm going to leave the time back for Jason to close up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, speakers, for all of your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to reach out to our speakers or find out how we can help you in the areas that you have brought up in the Q&A, simply scan the QR code that you see in my background or Thomas's background. This will also be shared later on by SBF. As a venture studio, our vision is to jumpstart and drive disruptive innovation for a better tomorrow. Innovations next. On behalf of TechJDI, I would like to thank once again the amazing SBF team for co-organizing today's webinar. Thank you, Kelly, our advisor from True Global Ventures, Jackson, advisor from Temasek Polytechnic, and Dr. John from VIZZIO. To all of you, fellow venturers, voyagers, founders, and futurists, for joining us in today's awesome webinar. Thank you for being part of Innovations Next. Do remember to scan the QR code because we would love to hear from you. This is Jason, Head of Sales and Marketing for TechJDI, signing off. Haresh, back to you.
Thank you, Jason and panelists, for that insightful sharing. I believe all our attendees today would have been able to reap some great insights from you. And here's a QR code that we'd like to share with you to let us know your thoughts of today's webinar. Do keep in touch with us. And if you would like to hear more from TechJDI, do let us know in the feedback as well. And we could also keep you updated on developments ahead. So with that, we'd like to wish you a great week ahead. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this wonderful morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye.